Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It takes place in the 23rd century when the remnants of humanity live beneath a cluster of giant domes. Inside a model city that's interiors all resemble the same shopping mall as a dystopian society that dress in different colors according to their age. When someone reaches the ripe old age of 30, they're alerted by a small crystal embedded in their palm to be sacrificed for the greater good. They get dissolved into sparkles during a public event called the carousel and replaced by a newborn with the same name. There's rumors that the crystal can turn back into white and the person gets to live another 3 decades, but that sounds like propaganda. Those that don't feel like becoming confetti are called runners for the obvious reason and get hunted by turtleneck-wearing police officers called Sandmen. One Sandman, Logan 5, oversees his future replacement at the nursery by tapping on the glass like it's a fish until his friend Francis 7 arrives. Recognizable by their black attire and powerful guns, the Sandmen are the only people in the whole city who do any real work. Everybody else just spends all day indulging in pleasures and are on the verge of spawning a chaos god if they don't start closing their legs. The two friends join the massive crowd to go watch the daily carousel marked by a giant statue of a hand flaunting its gem. As they're seated inside, Logan wonders who donated the egg to create baby Logan 6, as nobody in this twisted world has any idea who their family is. When it's time, the sacrifices are led out onto the lazy Susan in robes and hockey masks, with a gasp from the crowd like they don't see this every single day. Everyone with flashing red crystals disrobe into a costume surely designed to humiliate them as a beam of light reaches down from the ceiling. The entire crowd begins to cheer, including our policemen, as the sacrifices are lifted off one by one and ascend towards the light. Suddenly they begin to burst like fireworks, but Logan's enjoyment gets interrupted by a warning that they've got a runner on the loose. Despite several of the crowd being fellow turtlenecks, he's the only person who received the call, but Francis follows his friend anyway for backup. When they catch up, the so-called hero of the story taunts the terrified man with gunshots until the runner eventually decides to just leap off a balcony to his death. Logan then confirms the kill to Sandman HQ and takes an onk from the runner's personal effects along with everything else that he owns. A cleanup crew on hoverboards then quickly spray down the runner's corpse, causing it to disintegrate entirely before the public see it. Later that night, a snazzy-looking Logan teleports a random woman to his bedchambers named Jessica 6. They connect through some futuristic hookup site like Tinder, but she changes her mind on sleeping with Logan when seeing that he's a Sandman. Suddenly Francis barges in with 2 greens actually willing to put out, so Jessica slips away while Logan joins the 3 and some powdered inhalant. The next day, Logan and Francis check in at Sandman headquarters, where a bloody officer talks about being attacked by a gang of local yellows called Cubs. He wanders away while the pair check into HQ, and Francis is the first to enter in all of the confiscated personal effects from captured runners. Logan repeats the same procedure, but a monitor beyond the scanner activates and the computer tells him to take a seat. It reveals that over 1,000 runners have escaped over the years and formed a sanctuary that the Ankh is the key to locating. Because he was unlucky enough to find it, the AI orders Logan to locate the runners, then drains the next 4 years of his life so that he can pose as one. When he asks if his years will be returned once the mission's completed, the monitor just turns off as the computer's got a bit of an attitude. That night, Logan calls Jessica again, but this time not for some nookie, and instead to question her about the symbol that she inconspicuously wears around her neck. He asks her to set up a date with her people, but they wisely all just assume it's a trap set up by the Sandman because it's so obvious. To protect Sanctuary, Jessica pretends to agree to help Logan, but she plans on just leading him into a trap where more rebels can kill him. He gets notified about another runner, so the two take the transport system of tubes across the little model city in hopes of finding her. They reach a district so dangerous that they keep the doors locked to prevent the vicious little Mary 2 from escaping. The little thief steals Jessica's bracelet before running away, but Logan's smart enough not to get lured by her into a trap. He then spots the running woman and gets lured right into a trap laid out by the gang of feral kids called the Cubs. Their leader Billy boasts about slicing up the other Sandman, but he's also already 15 and will soon be torn apart by his own gang when his crystal turns green. He tries to smother Logan with a muscle relaxant that the others seem to enjoy recreationally, but he pulls his gun and scares away the kids, who scatter like roaches. Jess then retrieves her bracelet from the little criminal while the Sandman locates the terrified runner, who claims there's been a mistake and that she's only 22. She lashes out, but Logan calms her down and gives the woman a flashbang to protect herself, as I'm sure that'll help. It doesn't obviously, and Francis shoots the wide-eyed runner dead, having followed his friend before just leaving to pop up again later. It's now when Jessica reveals that she was really luring Logan into a trap, but now just trusts him completely because he didn't shoot the woman, I guess. She still says that Sanctuary will shoot Sandmen on sight if she takes him there, so the pair travel by tube transport to the Silicon Valley of the future. They visit a plastic surgeon where the bombshell receptionist Holly completely ignores Jessica to hear Logan's request to have his face moved around a little. She takes them to meet the young doc, who's one of the oldest people on Earth and invented his own full-body surgical machine. Logan gets laid out on the bed by Holly while the doc's revealed to be one of the rebels when he whispers to Jessica that she shouldn't have brought the Sandman. After demonstrating the device's ability to slice cheek and repeat, the doc receives a call from someone telling him to kill Logan. He activates his machine's slaughter mode and it spews out flesh-melting lasers in seemingly every direction but Logan's. Jess gets tackled off the doctor by Holly and Logan has his gun temporarily out of commission when it's frozen by Doc's handy little chili billy. The two struggle and it's only when Logan places the doc onto the table does it finally decide to slice him to death and the homewreckers escape. They cross Francis on the way out, so Logan knocks him to the ground to get away, which convinces the best friend that he's now dealing with a traitor. He chases him down for the whole movie like some scorned ex-lover, but we learn that Logan's loyal when he turns on his tracker to alert HQ of his position. Jessica's finally convinced that Logan's trustworthy enough to take to Sanctuary, but they first need to make their way through a blurry freak fest on the edge of town. They squeeze through the friendly people including the trailing Francis, and all three manage to make it out the other side with their pants still on. They walk down a massive staircase beside the dome's foundation and travel through a leaky tunnel system beneath the city to a resistance hideout. Logan reveals his flashing crystal and the two are allowed entry through the compromising little doorway but get held at LED spear point by silhouettes. They give the pair a healthy dose of shut-up gas whenever they don't like their answers until eventually Holly comes crawling through looking all disheveled. She freaks out at the sight of the Sandman, but Holly remembers him being pursued by Francis 7, so she's another dimwit that vouches for Logan as a legitimate runner. The group allow him and Jessica to pass through and tell him to continue following the tunnel that'll eventually lead them to Sanctuary. Since Logan already alerted HQ, they attack the hideout in full force, thinking that it's the main rebel base, and slaughter everybody including the poor naive Holly. Logan must kill his comrades to keep up the ruse and locate the real Sanctuary, but he comes across the creepy Francis again. He's still holding out hope for his friend and gives the "we all go a little crazy sometimes" speech, but Logan just shoots at him and skedaddles. At the end of the corridor they encounter a doorway that the Ankh opens, but Logan conveniently drops Jessica's necklace in a puddle, so they must use his one to escape. Continuing through an abandoned power plant, they talk about how barbaric it was that humans once ate animals while probably seeing fish for the first time. On the other end of convenience, Francis finds Logan's Ankh and continues to chase them down, but ends up missing his shot and shattering one of the giant tanks. The water washes Logan and Jess through a doorway and onto an elevator that automatically activates and begins to ascend them to the surface. It halts at a hallway that, because somebody left the freezer open, has turned into a frozen cave, and the two find some animal fur beneath an impressive sculpture of a walrus. This allows them to get a topless shot of the actress as she gets out of her wet clothing before immediately putting her dress back on after. A cyborg approaches named box that was made by somebody to look like this, and they think it's going to lead them to Sanctuary. But the immortal worker spent all of his time capturing the runners and freezing them inside a cold storage as per a food collection protocol. Being that they're on the coast, he's been programmed to focus on seafood, but humans stupidly use the verbiage to collect simply the word protein. He says that when the fish ran out despite the power plant calling him a liar, he began to focus on human protein like Jess and Logan while chanting his shopping list.
And plankton, and sea greens.
They escape when wrestling with Box. Logan's gun goes off, hitting the cyborg's collection of frozen protein-rich birds, and the cave collapses. Jessica and Logan get away and make their way to the outside world, where they remark at how warm the giant ball in the sky is. The planet shows no trace of the pollution that drove people into the domes, and the two find life in the form of a lizard that upskirts Jess, of course. Coming across a freshwater pond, the two go swimming when realizing that their crystals have turned white and their lifespans have been renewed. It's celebration time, and the two begin skinny dipping and making out before spending the night huddled up for warmth as they couldn't find the heating. In the morning they discover the overgrown ruins of Washington, D.C. and venture into the center, still expecting to find some sign of a human sanctuary. At the Lincoln Memorial they have a Planet of the Apes moment when marveling at the age of the president's face, since they've never seen somebody so old. After insulting old Abe, they continue to make their way to the Capitol building, where they find an old man living inside the House of Congress. He doesn't possess the crystal in his palm and hasn't even seen another human being for as long as he can remember, just lives alone with his hundreds of cats. Jessica freaks out at the realization that Box refrigerated the entire resistance and Sanctuary was really just that small group that got wiped out, but she gets over it. Meanwhile, Francis makes his way through the frozen cave past the cyborg chassis and sees the sun shining for the first time, but moves on just as quickly as the others. He must be one hell of a tracker, because he shows up at the Capitol building while Jessica's alone and takes her hostage. He then brings her upstairs to the gallery just to confront Logan from a more dramatic looking location while threatening to shoot him for being a traitor. The friend draws his attention to the crystal in his hand that's now gone white in color, meaning that he no longer has to die in a couple of years. Francis just thinks that it's a lie despite seeing the evidence and leaps from the balcony onto Logan, who doesn't even bother to move out of the way. They begin to fist fight because apparently the gun wasn't good enough and Francis is just lucky that Jess doesn't pick it up because it's right beside her feet. Preferring to use a flagpole to strangle his opponent, Francis gets disarmed by Logan, who beats him so badly with the pole that it kills him. The friend's final words are, "Oh, your crystal's white, so you must have been telling the truth," before Logan and Jess experience their first burial. The old man shows them the basics and tells them to do the exact same for him when his time comes, but Logan asks him to return with them to the dome. He wants to tell everybody that they don't need to die at the age of 30 and bring the old man with them as proof of wrinkles. They probably regret at the moment that they leave because he doesn't shut up about all of the memories he has of places that they pass. When they reach the edge of the dome, they find the top of a large power plant that generates energy through the tides to power the city. The old man waits outside while the youngins make a risky maneuver in swimming through a pipe in hopes that it leads them both into the city and not some dead end. It conveniently brings them all the way home as the carousel's about to begin, so Logan tries to warn everyone attending that they don't have to die. He reveals to them that his crystal's clear, but none of them seem to even care as the show's about to begin. Sandmen capture and take the two troublemakers to the computer where Logan's contained behind laser bars and refuses to answer any questions. A machine descends to create surrogate holograms of Logan's mind to answer the AI, but upon learning that Sanctuary doesn't exist, the computer malfunctions. The system that's been running this world for 200 years just shuts down for some reason, retracting the laser beams and allowing Logan to reach for a guard's gun. He blasts his way out, killing his former comrades, and destroys the computer's mainframe, causing the whole city to begin some kind of self-destruct sequence. I'm sure many innocent people die, but the citizens who managed to evacuate the shopping malls find the old man waiting for them outside. They all swarm the wrinkly old-timer like he's Joseph Merrick, and one nervous girl even reaches out to pet him like a puppy dog. As Logan and Jess emerge from the crowd, their new friend signals to them that he's surely getting laid tonight. And the movie ends.